acquainted with them, but he was new to the class, and so he comes in and sits down, and I'm telling about it, and from the depth of his sincere heart, he wished her well, that she makes it through chemo and cancer okay. It wasn't pretend, it wasn't fake, it was real. It was very sincere. Coming from a guy who I would label with lots of names that will offend you right now if I was to use them. And I thought, what a great example of trying to be other-oriented. He, of course, when you're transgender, you don't want to be called he or she and all that, but my value system is different than his. Can we get along? Well, that's the challenge. You don't have to surrender your values, what you believe is right and wrong, to get along with people who have different values. You don't have to. If someone is looking for acceptance in their life, and you can help, great. But it creates a whole lot of strange issues, and I would love to get into all those issues. Some are constitutional, some are cultural. But rather than go to those far edges, let's just kind of stay in the middle of being other-oriented about these things. Another short example, what was that again?
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to that.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest reasons people fail to be other-oriented is because they prioritize their own values to the point where they're so dogmatic that their own values need to be projected onto other people, otherwise they are completely wrong. So that's something I wanted to add, is that people have differing values, and that's just true all around. But the thing is that people think that their values supersede all, and that's one of the biggest reasons people fail to be. These are traits of empathy. So I think that describing this as empathy would be kind of looking for the word, I can't find it, but I think it's just that people, when it comes to their own values, it's not about whether or not they believe in it, it's whether or not other people do. And that's why we have such issues in today's world.
Yeah, such conflict. Thank you. That's really well said. That's a good point.
I also think that, like, culturally, like, watching my kids and a lot of the kids, it's like, you owe me type of, it's a me generation, like,
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, that's how, I see it, raising two kids and trying to teach them, no, it's not all about you.
Right.
I like the acronym what's in it for me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What's in it for me?
A lot of people are like that.
Yeah.
Even kids. My daughter got a good grade on her finals, and she's like, "So what are you gonna get me?" I'm like, "Nothing." So your job to go to school.
Yeah.
It's just like they're like more different, like old proper.
Yeah, it's a sense of entitlement. It's something
exactly.
It's something that I would think naturally occurs, because being selfless is a learned trait. It's something that we have to develop as society develops, so that way we can look out for each other. There's a lot of benefits to working together. There's also a lot of benefits for being completely selfish. I mean, there's pros and cons for both, but for society to work, it'd be better if we work together. I mean, preaching to the choir here, I bet,
Right.
But I think that's just something, an observation.
Yeah.
So I've got a question about being other-oriented and what's in it for me and selfless behavior. Would you consider yourself other-oriented?
Me as Paul?
Yeah.
I would say I'm working on it, but I'm doing better than I used to.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I just wonder how being other-oriented and refusing to use somebody's pronouns are not conflicting values of yours.
Yeah, they are conflicting. It's hard.
They are?
Yeah. In that class, I don't know if I told you about the guy who came and gave a lecture. I was supposed to stay after my class for him to get in there, but he's phasing out of him into something else, so I don't call him a him. And this was just last March this happened. And so So I asked the teacher the following week, I said, by the way, I never got his name. And she said, they is named Gear or something, G-E-R''E. And I said, oh, okay, yeah, I didn't get that. He said it real quick, and he said, well, they is named Gear. And I said, they, you mean all of them? And she said, yes. And I said, so if all of them are named that, then what's his name? And she said, they are named Gear. And I was told I didn't get what she was talking about. And finally, so she broke out of that PC mold and said, someone who's going through a transgender process doesn't want to be called a male or female pronoun. They want to be called something they choose. And they is neutral. And so whenever I say him or he or she would have, she used the word they. So I said, so we need a new word invented. She said, right. I was totally lost. But that's what happened.
So
I
did you?
have a different experience with that. My niece is transgender, and she doesn't want to be. She doesn't want to be called she. She wants to be called he. And her name's Chanel, and she changed it to Shane. And she doesn't want to be. It's still hard for me to not call her she because she's my niece.
Right.
But he doesn't want to be
Nephew. Yeah.
Nephew.
Yeah, my nephew.
Your nephew.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really hard not to switch.
Doesn't want to be associated with the female gender anymore.
Yeah.
So the whole they thing is just odd for me.
So that's in the middle. That wasn't,
Yeah.
cool.
So would it be other-oriented and selfless and less of me culture to use their preferred pronouns, to switch to my nephew, to use they when talking in the past tense?
It is probably the worst thing.
Oh,
That is-
definitely.
It is the worst.
Yeah,
thing.
don't. It's
Any-
not.
like, that is
They.
so awful.
Yeah.
Well, this is, of course, the debate that's raging, right? Now, personal values and integrity in your own self, this is a saw that cuts both ways. And that means a transgender person that gets called him or her should likewise be other-oriented and understand that people are not going to accept it. That's just what you were saying. Impose your demand that you call me what I declare myself to be. That saw goes both ways. And the best example I saw that was in class, in this 2110 class, a student who's gay. And he didn't care. And it was the most mature, healthy attitude I'd seen in any gay person I'd met. And I've got 3 in our bloodline, and they're not this mature about it. He doesn't care. You know, he knows that people find that disgusting, and so he's okay with that. He doesn't sit here and say, well, how dare you, and get all angry. He's other-oriented towards others' viewpoints of him and his gay lifestyle. Now, that was just that guy, that fellow. And no, that's not transgender, that was gay. But I've listened to him in class. He says, yeah, I'm writing this girl, this Mormon girl on her mission, and I got good friends, and we hang out and do all this stuff, but I'm a gay man. And he was just like, you know, that's part of me. Now can we get on with other parts of our life? And I thought, that's such a healthy attitude, at least in my opinion it was. So I would look for that in a transgender person to say, like this guy who came in wearing a dress and everything. If I addressed him as he could get all offended because I'm not participating in his choice. But likewise, would he recognize my perspective on what he's doing? Or is he going to sue me for harassment? We're not going to solve this debate in here.
No.
but that's the issue. And I really think that we can address people who are out of our value system in a fashion that's not offensive. And of course, if I find someone that wants to be called that, I would try not to start a fight and I would address them that. But if I slip, I don't want to be lectured.
Yeah.
because my perspective is different.
Sounds like this person didn't want to be identified as either he or she. It's just simply they. And there's some people who don't want to. It doesn't matter if they're gay, straight, whatever. They
Yeah.
don't want to identify with gender, stereotypes or whatever.
Yeah, sexual orientation has nothing to do with gender identity.
Yeah. Right. So it gets real complicated. But so how can we do that and not start a fight?
Well, I think the attitude should be do as you wish, so long as it harms not.
Right.
That should be the baseline value. As long as you're not harming anyone, it shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah.
I like
if there
that.
was, if there was people going around, you have to call me, Your Majesty or something like that, something ridiculous that, totally interrupts everybody else's, flow in the day. I mean, I'd have an issue with that, but if they correct me if I'm wrong, if I, don't address you right, just let me know, I think, I'm sorry, but,
We try.
I'm still new to this type of thing too, so it's completely fine to be honest about it, but, I think the baseline value that everyone should have is, as long as it doesn't harm anybody else, it should be okay.
Right. And the saw goes both ways.
Right.
If you're in a transgender status and you get called he or she or the wrong pronoun, you too need to be tolerant and say, I understand that person's perspective. Right? It has to go both ways.
They may not know that you want to be addressed as
Yeah.
he, she, or they, or there,
Or it just falls out. And how else do we
Museum.
conduct some
or me
discussions?
talking about my niece nephew.
Yeah. My niece few.
Well, I feel like people are like that because they get defensive. So it's not like niece, nephew. It's not that. It's like, so he doesn't want to be called a she, but that's why he's used to it. So if like by mistake we're like, oh, niece, then he'll get defensive because of all that discrimination that they go through with other people. So I feel like people are like transgenders, gays, lesbians, bisexual are always like on that attack mode because they don't know if you're being like, it's like mistake with like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm not used to it, or you're like doing it to be offensive. Because
Yeah.
the values is like people with the values, like they either think their values are the correct values. So
Right, right.
it's like what he was talking. It's like my value is like I don't like gay people, and that's what it should be, and that's how it should be. It's like not tolerant. You're not being tolerant. So people, especially here in Utah, and I'm talking because I'm bisexual and I'm in a lesbian relationship. I do get offended. I get attacked when I go out with my kids. Like I get dirty looks all the time, and it's like something I'm always on the like, okay, what are they gonna say to me? Are they gonna insult me? Are they gonna say something to my kids? Like I'm always like, say with my well, she's not transgender, but she doesn't care if like that you were saying, she doesn't care if you call her a him or a her. It's fine, it's whatever, but she's always on that defense because she gets attacked a lot.
Right.
Mhm.
Because the people, they think their values are the correct values, that it's not okay what we're doing. So it's a hard thing to be other oriented when you are gonna get attacked all the time.
Right.
So I think that's why a lot of people, why it's so hard to be other oriented, because I think all of us, like in a way, if not being lesbian, gay, whatever, like a lot of the times we're unattacked because we don't know if we're gonna get attacked because we're black or because we're Hispanic or because we're not citizens or because right now like there's a lot of races. It's like so like right now is you're worrying about your own self, about not being. So I feel that's why we're not over-oriented.
Well, I think people fear the unknown too. They don't want to educate themselves or try to. But all you have to say is simple. I'm sorry if I offended you. How would you prefer me to address you?
Yeah.
How should I address
That's all
you?
you have
I
to
think
say.
one of the biggest challenges is that it's near impossible to identify. One instance comes to my mind where there's a middle-aged white guy, heavy set, and he wants to be identified as a Filipino woman. And you not ever, how would you know? That's where they're, so you be pliable with this value system.
Yeah. It's hard.
I just learned last week that Pop Warner had been saying it in method that's in preferred, I assumed and used the term, so if somebody says a transgender man, I assume that meant someone who was born a male and has transitioned their gender. I figured it was like a math, like this is X, negative X is the opposite of X. So I figured that was the way that you point out that, because otherwise, if that person is not a woman, you would just say it is a woman. So I assumed that transgender man meant someone who was born a male and now identifies as a woman. But apparently, correct me if I'm wrong, that means someone who was born a woman and is now a man.
That's correct.
So I had been
yeah.
using it.
Transgender men are assigned female at birth.
Yeah. So, but like, you know, and I had it flipped because I figured,
Yeah.
you're like, you want to be identified as a man. Well, I'd be like, oh, that is a man. That used to be a woman, but now it's a man, or that, or
Yep.
assigned female at birth. You know.
So transgender
So,
men
I
use
think
male
there's
pronouns.
there's an issue, especially when you're talking about, if you're just talking about, oh, that's Steve, you know, he plays baseball. It's different than when you're talking about, you know, it's awkward to discuss it.
Mhm.
When you're trying to actually point out Steve's life journey where he did this transition, because Steve was born as a woman, you know, there's a difference between saying, oh, there's a woman in my class who is named Steve, because actually it's not a woman, it's a man, according to Steve. Then if you're just saying like, oh, my friend Steve, my neighbor Steve, you know, has got a cool bike, and
Right.
I really like it. You know, I tend to do that, I don't care. Like if I'm talking to Steve, it's the person I made up, but if I'm talking about Steve, you know, I don't care. Steve wants to be called whatever, that's fine. But then if I'm trying to describe it, I'm much more likely to slip in and say,
Mhm.
to do the opposite of what Steve wants in normal communication, because I'm trying to talk about the issue. It's difficult because then otherwise you get this qualifier all the time. You're like, well, this person who one time was this, but now it's this. I know.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be that hard.
No.
It doesn't need to be that hard.
Yeah, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying that like.
If you mess up, just, you know, Steve, she, he, that's perfect.
Exactly. But that's what I'm saying. Like
I think he was able to-
I'm not attacking or defending anyone. I'm just pointing out that
No, we did it.
I make that all the time.
Yeah.
Well, it can go to extremes. Did you hear about the track meet in Michigan? Two young men transitioning into female, whatever, participated in the track meet, and they took first and second. And then 3 months earlier, they had participated in the male and the boys track meet, and they had also taken first and second. So the parents of all the girls are fuming angry that physiologically and biologically different people saying that their girls could participate. And it wasn't just that, it was that they took 2 slots in that final race that other girls would have been on because the 2 transgender guys were there. So they're all up in arms, and it's creating a lot of confusion. I had an exercise in our class we might do that in here. There's an expert and an interviewer. I don't know, did I mention that one already? Where one of you plays the role of an expert and the other's the interviewer. And it was an exercise into just think off the top of your head and organize thoughts and pursue something. And so I put up these funny little subjects, and one of them was Elton John's Love Child. You know, one of you is the expert and the other is the interviewer. Okay, ready? Talk! And so this one young man was so confused he was unable to say, was the love child a boy or a girl? Because he had to say, so was the child self-identified based on what the parents were trying to imprint on the child, a boy or a girl, or it was total mass confusion. So where I draw the line is you leave kids alone.
Mm-hmm.
You let them develop on their own, and don't screw them up with hormones and surgery. That's child abuse, and you should go to prison for it. Let kids discover that as they become adults, who and what they are. Do they pattern after mom and dad? Yes, they do. That's extremely normal. So anyway, that's where I'll draw the line and say, that's child abuse. And I know there's people that will fight me on that. But when you're an adult, let's try to respect one another. And you're in those issues and those changes and those whatever. It's your chance to be on earth and be in the universe and make your contribution. So let's try to do that. Now, what I wanted to get at is notice the difference when you get to know somebody, when you get to know someone personal. A lot of these things kind of go away. And what I mean by that is when I make friends with somebody who's got a different value system, I get to know their heart, their mind, their what they want to do. Just like you were saying, these issues become secondary. Now, what can we do to make this a better world? How can we work together and make it a better world? And that's the goal. My cousin Johnny, he's gay, and he doesn't come to family things anymore because all we do is talk about our kids and our grandkids. He doesn't have any. He's on his eighth life partner, and the rest of us are talking about our 30th and 35th and 40th wedding anniversaries. You know, this constancy. He doesn't have it in his life, so he doesn't want to be around us. He separated himself. We didn't kick him away. He said, you just don't want to talk about things I'm interested in. We do too. But he was so defensive, and that's what you were just talking about. He got so defensive, he separated himself from the society of his family. So now we don't see him, and I think that's tragic. So he's my age now. Why can't I talk to Johnny? You know, good friend. I'm trying to attach to him on these other levels. So maybe we did push him. I don't know. But that's such a great list to look at. And once you get to know another person and you start to be aware of those things, I had a big eye-opener. I was with a friend in the car, and it's lunchtime. We're broken, you know, we're going on our way to lunch, and we're on a busy highway. And as we go by, here's this enormous woman, large, wearing tight spandex. It was so tight, you could see Abraham Lincoln on a penny smiling in her pocket. And it was that tight, and it was black. And she's jogging, and I'm making all these bad jokes. And my friend is just listening to me go off on my tirade and say, "Oh, I'll bet the Richter scale up at the University of Utah is going off now." You know, I'm making all these bad jokes. And he said, "Paul, look at it. She knows she's way overweight, but she's working it. She's running. She's trying to fix it. And you're sitting in a car making fun of her. Who's the better person?"
Oh, ouch.
I'll say ouch. I thought about that and realized what an idiot. She's out working her problem publicly. She doesn't care. She's going to lose the weight and exercise and get better. And I'm here making fun of her just because she's out there, you know. Why don't you go down the side streets, you know? So we get this all the time. Other-oriented. I'll bet you today she's probably achieved her goals, and even if she didn't, she showed more desire to fix something in her life that was apparent than I was giving her credit. She was going after a goal. That takes a strong personality. Do you think she knows she gets mocked and laughed at and pointed at? Oh, yeah. But to take it and still stick with her values and integrity and desires shows a strong personality despite the experiences. And she probably hurts inside because of that. And she's trying to do something about it. And I didn't recognize that. So, you know, that's why I say, am I other-oriented? I'm learning as time goes on. And we all are. You are too. We just talk right through our little break. That will solve the world's problems, I believe. Unfortunately, we won't run into people who agree with that. And even today, over in, you know, in the Middle East and Asia and everything like that, women are treated, as you all know, differently. There's some horrible videos on YouTube where somewhere, I don't know what country, it's Middle East, Pakistan, some gays are being thrown off a roof. Anybody look that up?
No.
Yeah, they drag them, it's like 4 stories up, and they were caught practicing homosexuality, and they're literally, there's 3 or 4 guys up there, and they just take them and just chuck them off the roof. Can you imagine? You know, everybody has human rights, no matter what you believe, maybe for other reasons. So being that way, it's not singular. It's a collection, and you pick up with experience over time. So here we've talked about transgender issue pretty much. Okay, that's part of picking up that collection of skills. How do we get along without pure rejection? So that's good. So we try to do a better job. Anybody have a close friend commit suicide or family member? How many have had a suicide? Yeah, a few of us. Yeah. That's traumatic, no matter what the relationship is, and you think in your own heart, coulda, woulda, shoulda. I've had one phone call about a student doing that, and it's like a member of my own family, and it's devastating. I think, how could I have created a safer environment so she would have felt included and loved and appreciated, and that she could trust everyone else?
You know what, Bill, you go through the what if. Like I still did it. You know, that's how my husband died.
Oh,
And it was awful. Like, you know,
yeah.
and you can't, because you'll just go crazy. If somebody makes up their mind to do that, they will do it. It doesn't matter. There were no signs, there were nothing. He called everybody, everyone.
And just no other signs or outward symptoms?
Nope, nothing.
Yeah. These demons inside, don't we?
I think we all carry guilt at one point in time. It doesn't go away. You just gotta, you know, like.
I guess if you get hit in the face enough times by life, I notice a lot of us tend to start to frame our own value and self-esteem according to outside, and we'll talk about that in class, how we identify ourselves. And it's really interesting. It starts at about age 18 months to 2.5 or 3 years old. That's when we imprint. Oh, shoot. Sorry about that. I think the timer on my thing. But that happens at this young age. You imprint upon, or rather, you demonstrate and show others your attachment style. Anyone heard that term before, attachment style? Yeah, and we'll talk about it lightly in here. You develop an attachment style, and if it was strong and healthy, you show that in future relationships when you get married with your kids and all that. If it was weak or distrustful, you have a hard time trusting people to date. And when you do, you expect the relationship to be